We're recording! Whippy! Yoo-hoo! So this is going to be my final video on Xenoverse 3. Xenoverse 2. I already messed it up. This is my Xenoverse 3 wish list. This is everything I want in Xenoverse 3. This is not nitpicks, okay? I don't care that fucking Goku's orange is slightly off in some scenes or whatever. I don't care about things like that. This is like genuine, like things that I want changed about the way that the game plays or feels. And this is not roster, unfortunately. Because I know that some of you would buy the worst game on the planet if it had Tarble in it. That's not the point of this. So first off, the first thing that I want, these are all my OCs. I just want the transformations to be ironed out a little bit. I think the Potential Unleashed and Beast are fine. Beast, I don't think should be a transformation personally, just because of we don't even know how it works yet. So that was purely just to get people to play the game again, and I understand that. But yeah, Potential Unleashed just needs to be a middle ground to where it's almost as strong as Beast, but still provides the defensive utility. Because Potential Unleashed is the slap on for races where you don't want to use a gimmick transformation, right? Golden was perfectly fine when this game came out because it was Frieza's new transformation. However, I personally feel that the transformation for Frieza race should probably be physical, as in it should be a cooler type transformation where you bulk up and grow, and maybe there could be another character customization thing for that. I think that would be very sick, but I also understand the color transformation. Maybe now, because of how Frieza went from golden to black, if they want to base it on Frieza, they could do it that you have like a gold state that you master, so initially it drains your stuff, and then you move on and master it, and then you get the second form that permanently drains. So it's stronger, but at the risk of drain, right? Personally, I'm completely fine with how they handled Super Saiyan for the most part. The only thing is, Super Saiyan is pretty linearly up, so like, Super Saiyan 1 to 4 are increases on top of each other, and Super Saiyan God to Evolution are increases on top of each other, and I think that you should be able to stack them. I think that if you want to play as a Saiyan, like a Super Saiyan, you should be able to go from 1 to 3, if not 4. And then for God, you should be able to go from God to Blue to Evolution. That's a general mechanic we'll get to in a little bit. So, Namekians being giant is fine. I just wish that they were a little bit better as giants. I know that they were broken at first and they had to nerf them. I'm not a game design whiz, so I genuinely don't really know where to go for giants. Maybe retaining your moves and them having like an insanely wider range would be good, but then you would have to figure out a way to deal with the damage so that the damage doesn't become overwhelming. But I mean, there's something better than just being a blaster, right? Humans, I really dislike Power Pull Pro. It's not for me. I understand the form works, but again, I think Power Pull Pro should be an all-race transformation. It makes the most sense. Because there's nothing about it that relies on you being human. It's just that humans don't have any transformations. Kaioken, Power Pull Pro, Potential Unleashed, they're all things that anyone could do, and humans actually don't have that. If you want to keep it to just the 5 races, I actually think that the auto recovery on Ki should be buffed on humans, and that they should lose any unique transformation. That would be my personal suggestion. However, if you want to keep Beast in the game, my other suggestion would be to have Beast be the specifically human transformation, because Gohan is human. He's not fully human, but if you follow the events of the Tournament of Power in the manga and some of Gohan's general characterization, he talks about how his path to power is generally, you know, being human instead of Saiyan. So you could make that excuse for Beast being human. And then Purification. Purification is just generally, it doesn't actually make sense. The reason Boo purified in the show, and this isn't a nitpick because it'll affect what the transformation is, but that was specific to that Boo. Like, you're your own Boo. Personally, the way that I think transformation should work for the Boo characters would be you change gender. So if she were to purify, she would turn into something like him, and if he purified, he would turn into something like her. And of course, I think that having another customizable transformation like this for it would be pretty cool. But what I think should happen is that they should have more distinctly defined roles before and after transformation. So these should really be health tanks, and these should really be offensive juggernauts. And the idea is that either one that you want to always be, you can still have the other in, like, transformation as backup. I think that would be the general way to go. This is a good excuse because of how long it's going to take to load to say that I don't have many issues with the online as of right now. I know that that's going to shock people, but Xenoverse has sold, I believe, like 4 or 5 times the amount that it was projected to at max. So to put it bluntly, they just weren't able to design with it in mind how much they were actually, the volume they were going to do. So the online quality is much shoddier than it should be for how successful the game is, but that's one of the few things you can't really blame on them that much. Now, granted, it has been 7 years, and, you know, things change. Now, an example of a nitpick would have been saying that you always have to stop and wait to be able to move when you get your little auto patrol and daily login bonus pop up. That's a nitpick. I don't care about things like that. It's annoying, sure, and you feel it every time you play the game, but it's insignificant. So on this list, the first thing to talk about is the story. Because as of right now, the story is you play through all the major events of the story, the Dragon Ball Z story, and you play as your OC, and you go into an era of history, and the era of history is messed up because the villain is purple and stronger, so you have to fight them. It's incredibly lame. It's just the main story, which gets into, I don't actually want them to change how the story works too much, because I actually think, I don't believe you can redo it, but the post-game story events where you fight as Bardock and future Gohan are actually some of the funnest in the game. I don't know if I'll fully play one, but I'll see if I can load it up as an example. And this is actually how I think that the entire thing should be. Here we go. So this is an example of what I think they should actually do for the story of the game, and because of the fact that I think the story of the game should actually be entirely cast characters. So, in this story event, you play as future Gohan, you know, his destroyed timeline, and you fight against androids 17 and 18. Just like how History of Trunks happened, but it's realistic. Look at how little damage you do, and then comparatively look at how much damage he does.
Kill him now! Use your full power!
The last time we fought, I barely even used half of my true power.
And this time, you're outnumbered 2 to 1.
And she just said it herself, it's a team battle. She'll actually jump in and mug you. And, you know, obviously you have capsules that you can use to cheese this. If you're just good at the game generally, you know, you're pretty fine. But the stat difference is enough that I think that could make for a really compelling main system. Xenoverse is designed around having you be level 1 to 99, and maybe pushing the numbers up a little bit for bosses like they do for expert missions and raids would allow some of the end-game story events to work. But for instance, being level maybe 1 as Goku and Piccolo, and then fighting like a level 10 Raditz, you know, or maybe for like some of the bigger jumps, like when you were, what's a really good disparity in power? Like maybe you're fighting as like level 10s against like a level 100 Beerus during Battle of Gods, when you play as like Piccolo and Tien and Vegeta and all them. And if you were to go through the whole story, so like you had to survive against Frieza for a minute, but he's like level 50 and you're like level 5. Or during the Android 17 and Piccolo fight, you have to reduce his health to a certain amount and you're both level like 50 or something. I think that that's a really good structure that the main story could take. And then maybe the time patroller stuff could be secondary or expressed through the online, which I actually wouldn't have a bigger problem with. However, if you're going to go the other route, I do think that the Tokopedia is the way that you should go for custom character story. So the Tokopedia works in a very simple but very cool way.
Greetings.
Essentially, through each mission, initially you have to do the good one, but during the Cell games, androids 13, 16, 17, and 18 all show up to kill Goku. So you either help Cell defeat them, or you take down Cell with them. And all throughout these, you choose each side of what you're going to do. This is a very cool way to do the story, if you want to do the entire story this way. For instance, in a timeline, you could have helped Piccolo defeat Frieza, but then you have to go and help during the Android Saga because everyone is weaker. No one figured out how to go Super Saiyan, right? You could do things like that. The reason I think the cast character story I just did with Future Gohan is the better route is because they're clearly not very creative. I know that that's very rude to the people who made this game, but they just aren't creative. At the very least, they didn't show their creativity in the base game. All of the creativity so far has been in the DLC, which leads me to believe that they either intentionally sold it knowing that it wasn't going to do well, which is malicious, or that they're not creative people and that other people worked on the DLC. That's why I think the Tokopedia is probably less likely, since I don't think the Dimps themselves will actually release a game of that quality. But that's one way to handle it. The DLC in general, I just don't think it should be released with the same intention of doing what this game did now. I just don't... I don't think personally that DLC is something you should have planned out before you release a game. I think that you should have it fully developed and realized as an independent launch. So I don't really have anything to say about DLC. Parallel quests, RNG. So I can't really do this anymore because I 100% in the game and I have all the skills. But essentially the way that the RNG works now is that, let's say that I do Seeing Double, or let's do one that I've done in Z-Raycon. Let's say that I do Battle of the Mind. This is the one where you do the Jiren, right? I could Z-rank it and get an ultimate finish and still not get either Impact Flare or Power Wall, because the game has RNG. However, the problem is there's also no other way to get Impact Flare or Power Wall, right? And initially you might be tempted to say that this is some money scam for you to pay extra to get it, but it doesn't really work that way. The only way to get these skills outside of RNG through Parallel Quest 150 would be to complete a double crystal raid, which you have to get demon crystals for. But you get demon crystals through RNG through the expeditions, so you can't really pay for them with real money. So it's just pure RNG. It's very stupid, it's very limiting. There's no reason to include this level of RNG into a game. And if you want to push the online the way that this game has online into the next game, and you want to really focus on like the outside and DLC track, you don't need to have the people playing for RNG. Like, this doesn't get you more money, it just makes it more frustrating for the player. The solution everyone thinks is that if you get a Z rank, you should get every reward. I think that's perfectly fine. If you want to compromise and leave RNG into the game, the way that I would personally do it would be to go both ways. Have the Z rank guarantee you every item, but every rank below that you have diminishingly lower chances of randomly getting the item. So for instance, on Seeing Double, I have all the items even though I didn't get a Z rank. That was because it took me several tries. So if you're not good enough to Z rank it, you can still brute force it in RNG grind. But if you are skilled enough and you're putting in the effort and time to learn the game and perform at a level to get a Z rank, you should be getting the rewards, right? I know it's amazing that I even have to go over this in the first place. This is like a basic common thing for game, but... And I really am not a game designer. Like, I'm very stupid, but this is like so fundamentally basic that it's shocking to me that I even have to talk about it. But yeah, get rid of RNG. Now, I understand clothing There's no way to like do clothing, but like for plenty of these, you don't get any clothing, so just spread the pieces of clothing out over things, or make it so that you can actually buy all of the clothing in the shop. So for instance, you can go to the clothing shop, but this is all you can get. Whereas, look at this. How in the world are you supposed to just more than like 3 times the amount that you can buy is like RNG dependent? And it's so ridiculous and stupid. You can definitely make more of it purchasable, more of it whateverable, right? Another thing that I'm going to point out is partner customization. You can see I've done some of my characters in their colors. The weird colors, Super Saiyan 5. Right, very cool. Nappa, all this. I believe this should actually be doable for every character. And I know that sounds immediately very, very scary, right? Because you would actually have to put a lot of effort into it, but essentially, I would extremely trim down the roster. I would actually release Xenoverse 2 with less characters, or Xenoverse 3 with less characters than Xenoverse 2 launched with, because I would actually want each oh, that's not good. Okay, well, if this releases with entirely my audio, that's going to be real awkward. But essentially, we would trim down the roster. That would be its own video, but the roster would be smaller with more customization. So in these costume areas, you can get certain costumes by giving gifts to everyone. I think that should be a universal factor. Mostly because the customization in this game is easier to do than other games. Like, for instance, fighters, you have to account for every single frame input of a costume and all of that, which makes it more difficult. Okay, I need to... We'll change this while I'm talking. That's not good. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, we'll just have to pray and hope that it works out. But for Xenoverse, the entire game is built around the custom character, and like with how interchangeable everything is, there's no way it's that hard to give some of these people alternate costumes. Like giving Ginyu Salza or whatever, giving him his King Cold cape, tracksuit, including people like Semi-Perfect Cell. There's no way that it's impossible. And here's another thing, is that a lot of my demands sound a little extreme, but I'm doing this with the full assumption they'll be using the same engine that they've run Xenoverse 1, Xenoverse 2, Kakarot, and Breakers in, because they have. I don't care. It's a fine engine. Like, this still looks pretty good in 2023. I don't think that there's any major reason to go nuts and just change the engine for no reason. But because you're in the same engine you've made this game work so well on, there's a higher expectation to do more with it, right? So I think that full skill, stat, soul, costume customization for every character would be necessary, but we would also reduce presets. So I do have a list of presets that I would do, and I think Goku has like max 15, whereas like I believe there's like 40 Gokus in the game right now. So that's the kind of trimming down I would talk about that I mean to do. Dialogue is the next option. Just fucking, if you're not gonna voice it, just make it, I don't know. If you're not gonna voice it, just make it so that you can skip through it. I mean, you can for most of it. Maybe voice all of it if you want the story to matter, you know. As far as the presentation goes of the story, I think that the 3D cutscenes make a lot of it worth it. I would cut down on the not good 3D cutscenes, so like the ones that are just okay. And really cut down on like the Pokemon Sun and Moon back and forths that have no audio. Really cut down on that. a lot of those conversations equate to, we need to do this, so just include that in a different cutscene. It's just there to waste time. It's there to fill out the game. And I understand, this game came out in a very short period of time, but you have now had 7 years. There's no excuse. Next thing we're going to talk about is expert missions. I think these should stay in the game. They're basically offline raids. However, they should be designed around being offline. Right now, they're designed on being online. And as a result, even though this character I have is max stats, pretty good cheesy energy build, this will not take very long. I'm going to get absolutely destroyed by this guy. So yeah. Can't do any damage, really. Disparity's too big.
Destroy everything.
He's got super armor. And you'll notice that even though my Super Soul is activated, none of the other characters have Super Souls. So in any mission where you do this offline, you're essentially dealing with just 6 beef sponges. They don't have anything Super Souls to give them longevity, Super Souls to make you stronger, anything like that. And look how quickly they're going down. And something I want to point out is that they're all really high level. They're level 95. Yeah, they're almost all level 99. And they're still going down like that. It's insane. Personally, the biggest thing I would do is for offline missions, specify that expert missions are not raids, and make it to where you can choose your allies. So, for instance, going back to the partner customization, you can build some really powerful partners. For instance, Vegeta has a super soul that he gets because of Turbo. Good voice crack there, makes me sound even more like a nerd. Lend me your power, boost the strength of all allies' attacks. So, there you go. You pick Vegeta. Now you can't use the Super Soul, so move on to... Who else has got a really good Super Soul? Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. His Super Soul boosts your ki and strike skills, but it makes you more vulnerable to them. So after a minute, he's also a support character. Characters like Goku have aggression because of instant transmission. It's a spammable move that keeps them aggro. Things like that. Goku Black Super Soul lets him... automatically revive himself. You can have tons of partners that have all these different assets that would make it like sort of like building a team. And if you have like, and it sounds like, oh well, in that case you would just build the strongest team, right? But if you want to use someone like Krillin, even just building it so that he can get auto ki recovery just makes him that much stronger. If you like just want to use someone weak, it makes it way more doable for expert missions. For raids, I think that raids function completely how they're supposed to right now. I want them to be able to be done offline, just because having to wait for them is a little weird, but I understand they're limited time online events. The Crystal Raid route is pretty good. Getting skills and clothing that you couldn't normally get, that you haven't got yet, is a very good system for it. I kind of like it. We already talked about the roster. And get rid of TP medals. TP medals are just there so that you can sell them through Steam and the PlayStation Store. TP medals are purely there so that they can be sold to the player for real money. Obviously, I think that's very bad. If you want to leave them in the game, then you need to make it so that you can actually earn them somehow, instead of doing 16 TP medals for an expert mission. That is the most TP medals you can earn at one time, other than booster events, which goes up to 24. Wow. Incredible. Personally, you'll notice I have 24 million Zenny just from playing the game casually. Not casually, but like normally, right? I didn't grind for Zenny, and I have that much left over and there's nothing to do with it. Making it so that maybe at 1 million Zenny, you can convert to like, I don't know, like 100 TP medals. Sounds fair. I mean, like, oh no, I would have like 2,000 TP medals, so I could buy like 2 pieces of artwork in the TP shop. Speaking of the TP shop, you shouldn't pay for loading screens. I don't know how else to tell this to you, like, but if you're like a reasonable human being, you don't pay real money for TP medals to get loading screen. Loading screens should come in the base game. Mascots are fine. Making them super ultra rare rewards for completionists is fine. Gifts are really bad because they would invalidate the customization system I want in the game. I would like the Super Soul system as it is. There's nothing really wrong with this. I think that more creative ones could be done. And making it so that you can access more of them early would help them not feel so bad. So, like, some of these just, like, don't really... Like why is this one that you have to wait to get? This should be, like, an early in one because it's so small. Like, outside of, like, a expert mission where you could stack them, this is, like, really bad. So I have no idea why it's so late. I believe the clothing system is very... For 2016, and for the engine it's running on, I think that the clothing system works very well. Obviously, I think that customization for the main character needs to be expanded. Not just in clothing, but also in skills. So right now, when you go to customize your skill set, you get to choose 4 supers, 2 ultimates of transformation, and an evasive. I think the system is completely fine. I don't have any major problems with it. However, transformation system, I would still upgrade. Personally, if I'm playing as a Saiyan, I'm going to be able to go from Super Saiyan 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Then from God to Blue to Evolution. If I'm doing Kaioken, I want to be able to go up to 20, maybe 100. So maybe adding a Kaioken past 20 times 100 would be good. I think that all of them could use higher stat buffs, at least for the player, for the story. I think that the evasive system works really fine right now. They deal very little damage in exchange for getting you out of moves, and in some cases even buffing you, right? I think it works very well. Except for Punisher Guard. It's just stupid. It's broken. Personally, I think that if you want to sacrifice an ultimate, you should be able to equip a 5th super, but at the same time I understand for post-stacking builds, this is really strong. If you stack, like, I believe... Yeah, Divinity Unleashed, Meditation, Formation, Supercharge, whatever charge it's called, Ultimate Charge, and then 1 fighting move, you would be literally unstoppable. So I understand that there are some restraints you have to keep in mind, but I really struggled to, like, justify 2 ults in the base game at least, other than just for fun. So the system is fine as is. I think personally you should be able to compromise 1 ultimate slot for a super attack. Not 2, because of all the poses that would break the game. But I think that the system works completely fine as is for the player. What I really want changed for the player are the combos. So, if you play as a Boo Girl, no matter your height, your physical build, or what have you, you will always do the same punch, send them flying, circle around, kick, combo. I can't describe it very well, but... No, I just chose a bad one. The tutorial one doesn't have much fighting. But before I show the combo I'm talking about, one thing to consider, and I don't even think I need to show it, I'll just do it for while I'm talking, but you have all these mentors, right? And, like, I just have it filled out because I'm, like, a turbo loser, but, like, if someone learns under, like, Whis, they probably want to be able to learn how to use Ultra Instinct in their fighting style. So maybe having it be that if you use Whis' combat style, you have Ultra Instinct whenever you're not moving, at the cost of Ki or something like that. Maybe if you learn under Bardock, you start fighting more, like, savagely. You lean more into heavy attacks than your normal combo strings, which makes you more vulnerable, but you do more damage. Or, let's say that for Boo, if you learn from Boo as, like, a Namekian or a Boo, you, like, fight stretchier. For someone like Yamcha or Tien, you can learn their distinct combat styles, since they developed their own outside of the turtle style. For Goku, you can learn Goku's combos. Just learning it so that you can change things like your aura color. You know, obviously all Boos have pink. But maybe you train under Goku and you want to have his aura color. You could be blue. Or you could have, who's one with the unique one? Broly, he's got that green one. You know, you could do things like that. Vegeta has blue, I think. Or you could go white or red, if you want to be, like, evil, you know? that's one way to go about it. Being able to change your key blast style without using a super soul would also be nice. Because the key rush is like the generic one that's really good, but people that know how to use bomb style and like tracking style key blast are good with them. And if you want to be able to do that while having Goku's moveset, that would be good. But just in general, I think that the character customization needs some more options when it comes to combat. But I also understand why, because if you'll notice, the moves that you can't access are usually on characters that have grabs. So things like Imperfect Cell's Piccolo attack, where he grabs you and then blasts a hole in your stomach. The main reason player characters aren't able to really use that is because of the fact that the grab animation apparently is inconsistent with people. And that would kind of explain it. But I think that for the most part, that's pretty much all of my complaints and things that I want patched up. Now, this won't happen. Xenoverse is a money-making machine, and Dragon Ball is like Pokemon, where it is too big to fail. So no matter what slop they put out, people will buy it, and I can't do anything about that. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. But yeah, these are basically the big things I want. And I could go nitpicky and ask for like a million more things, but I also wanted you to really keep in mind that I am considering this will be on the same game engine, and that Xenoverse 2 is already at this level of quality. So I only expect it to go up. That's how you should view games. Like, I don't know. I just think fundamentally, and this is, where we get into like game design, but like, for linear sequels like this, it should only get better. I don't think that's very picky. I think that if you watched a movie and then you watch the sequel, and the sequel doesn't do anything the first movie did right, you shouldn't like the movie. Just because it's Dragon Ball. But that'll be it. Bye.